The double doors to the kitchen swung open, releasing a wave of heat and the sharp scent of garlic and simmering tomato sauce. I pressed my palm against the cool stainless steel counter, willing the dizziness to pass. Just 3 more hours. 3 more hours and I could go home, collapse on my mattress, and pretend the world didn't exist for a few precious hours. Table 12 needs their appetizers, Sarah. Marco, the head chef, barked from across the kitchen. His thick Italian accent made every sentence sound like a command. Mr. Dante is not a patient man. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The nausea that had been my constant companion for the past 2 months threatened to rise again. I grabbed the tray of bruschetta and caprese, steadying myself before pushing back through those doors into the dining room of Lombardi's, Chicago's most exclusive Italian restaurant. The weight of the tray seemed heavier tonight. Everything seemed heavier. My feet ached in the required black heels. My lower back throbbed with a persistent pain that no amount of stretching could relieve. And beneath the black button-down shirt and apron I wore, hidden by careful layering, my secret grew day by day. I was 17 weeks pregnant and absolutely terrified. The dining room of Lombardi's was designed to impress. Vaulted ceilings with exposed wooden beams, walls of aged brick softened by warm lighting, tables draped in crisp white linens, each centerpiece a carefully arranged display of fresh flowers. Crystal glasses caught the light from wrought iron chandeliers, casting rainbow prisms across the faces of Chicago's elite. And in the corner, at the table everyone whispered about but no one approached, sat Dante Moretti. I'd been working at Lombardi's for 6 weeks, ever since I'd fled Milwaukee with nothing but a backpack and $300 to my name. In those 6 weeks, I'd learned the unspoken rules of the restaurant. Never approach table 12 unless specifically assigned. Never make eye contact with Mr. Moretti or his associates. Never, ever ask questions about the men in expensive suits who spoke in low voices, and whose conversations died the moment you approached. Tonight, I'd been assigned to table 12. It's a test, Anita, the senior waitress, had whispered when the assignments were posted. Her dark eyes held sympathy and warning in equal measure. He goes through waitresses like tissues. One mistake and you're gone. Sometimes worse than gone. I couldn't afford to be gone. I'd paid my landlord 2 months' rent in advance for the studio apartment in a neighborhood where gunshots punctuated the night. I had exactly $47 in my bank account. And in approximately 5 months, I would have a baby who needed food, diapers, a place to sleep. The father? Gone before I could even tell him. A mistake made in a moment of loneliness with a charming stranger whose name I wasn't even sure was real. He disappeared the next morning, leaving behind a note that said, "Sorry, not who I said I was," and a tiny life growing inside me that would change everything. I approached table 12 with careful steps, the tray balanced perfectly on my left palm. 3 men sat there tonight, Dante Moretti at the head, of course. Even seated, his presence dominated the space. Broad shoulders beneath a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I'd earn in a year. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Roman statues, all sharp angles and classical beauty. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch dark as midnight. Intelligent, dangerous, missing nothing. To his right sat a man I'd heard called Angelo. Shorter, more compact, with the alert posture of someone trained to react in milliseconds. His eyes swept the room constantly, cataloging exits and threats. The third man I didn't recognize. Older, perhaps 50, with silver threading through his black hair and the expensive watch of someone who never worried about money. "Gentlemen," I said, my voice steady despite the hammering of my heart. "Your appetizers. Bruschetta with heirloom tomatoes and aged balsamic, and our caprese with buffalo mozzarella." I set the plates down with practiced precision, starting with Dante as protocol demanded. My hands didn't shake. I'd learned long ago to hide fear, to present a calm exterior no matter what chaos raged inside. "Wine?" I asked, noting their glasses were nearly empty. "The Barolo," Dante said. His voice was exactly what I'd expected, deep, controlled, with the faintest trace of an Italian accent that suggested he'd learned English later in life. "The 2003. I nodded, turning to retrieve the wine from the cellar. As I walked away, I felt his gaze on my back. Not leering or inappropriate, but assessing, as if I were a puzzle he was solving. In the wine cellar, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. The cool air helped settle my stomach. I found the Barolo, cradling the bottle carefully as I climbed back up the narrow stairs. Each step required concentration. My balance wasn't what it used to be. When I returned to table 12, their conversation paused. I showed Dante the label, waited for his nod of approval, and opened the bottle with the smooth efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. I poured a taste for him first. He swirled the wine, studying the color in the candlelight. Then he raised the glass to his nose, inhaling deeply. Finally, he tasted it, holding the wine in his mouth for a moment before swallowing. "Acceptable," he said, which I'd learned was high praise from Dante Moretti. I poured for the other 2 men, then filled Dante's glass. As I did, a wave of dizziness hit me so suddenly I had to grip the edge of the table. The room tilted, my vision narrowing to a tunnel. "Are you well?" Dante's voice seemed to come from far away. "Yes, sir," I managed, straightening. "Just turned too quickly." His eyes narrowed slightly, but he said nothing more. I finished pouring and retreated to the kitchen, my heart racing. That was close. Too close. I made it through their first course. Pasta carbonara for Angelo, risotto ai funghi for the silver-haired man, and for Dante, a simple dish of spaghetti aglio e olio that Marco prepared personally, tasting it 3 times before allowing it to leave the kitchen. "Perfect," I heard Dante say after his first bite. The single word made Marco beam with pride from the kitchen doorway. But by the time I was preparing to serve their main courses, the dizziness had returned. Worse this time, accompanied by a strange weakness in my legs. I'd skipped lunch to save money. Breakfast had been a piece of toast. I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a proper meal. "You look like death," Anita said bluntly, studying me as I arranged the entrees on my tray. "When did you last eat?" "I'm fine," I lied. "Sarah," she gripped my arm, "if you faint in front of Dante Moretti—" "I won't," I interrupted, though I wasn't sure I believed my own words. The tray felt impossibly heavy as I lifted it. Osso buco for Angelo, branzino for the silver-haired man. And for Dante, bistecca alla fiorentina, a massive T-bone steak cooked rare, exactly as he always ordered it. I made it halfway across the dining room before my vision began to sparkle at the edges. Black spots danced in my peripheral vision. My legs turned to water beneath me. No, I thought desperately. Not now, not here. I reached table 12 through sheer force of will. Set down Angelo's osso buco, reached for the silver-haired man's branzino. The room spun violently. The tray tilted in my hands. "Sarah," Dante's voice, sharp with concern. I tried to answer, tried to steady the tray, tried to remain standing, but my body had other plans. My knees buckled. The tray crashed to the floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire restaurant. China shattered, food scattered across expensive carpet, and I fell. Strong arms caught me before I hit the ground. I found myself cradled against a solid chest, breathing in expensive cologne and something uniquely male. My vision cleared enough to see Dante Moretti's face inches from mine, his dark eyes wide with something that might have been alarm. "Call an ambulance," he snapped to Angelo. "No," I managed to whisper. "No ambulance. I can't afford." "Quiet," Dante commanded, but his voice was gentler than I'd ever heard it. He shifted his hold on me, one arm beneath my knees, the other supporting my back, lifting me as if I weighed nothing. The restaurant had gone silent. Every diner, every staff member, everyone staring at the scene unfolding at table 12. As Dante carried me toward the door, my loose-fitting shirt shifted. The fabric pulled tight across my midsection. For just a moment, Dante froze mid-step. His gaze dropped to my stomach, then snapped back to my face. In his eyes, I saw recognition, understanding, and something else I couldn't quite name. "You're pregnant," he said. Not a question. A statement. Tears burned in my eyes. My carefully guarded secret, exposed in the worst possible way. "Please," I whispered. "If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. I need this job. I can't." "How far along?" he interrupted. 4 months, I admitted, the lie automatic, adding a month to buy myself more time before it became obvious. Dante's jaw tightened. He looked at Angelo, who had appeared at his side. "My car." Now. Sir. The ambulance. My car. Dante repeated, his voice brooking no argument. She's coming home with me. What? I tried to sit up, but Dante's arms tightened around me. No, I can't. You just collapsed in my restaurant, Dante said, still moving toward the exit. You're malnourished, clearly exhausted, and pregnant. You will come to my home. My doctor will examine you. And then we will discuss why a pregnant woman is working herself to death serving my dinner. I don't even know you. I protested weakly. Something flickered in Dante's eyes, almost like hurt. Then allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Dante Moretti. And as of this moment, you are under my protection. I don't need protection. I need my job. Your job just ended, he said flatly, pushing through the restaurant doors into the cool Chicago night. But trust me, Piccola, you won't be needing it anymore. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. Angelo opened the back door, and Dante slid inside with me still in his arms, settling me on the leather seat beside him. Wait, I said as Angelo closed the door and moved to the driver's seat. My things. My coat, my bag. Angelo will retrieve them, Dante assured me. He reached behind him and pulled out a soft throw blanket, draping it over my legs. How long since you've eaten a proper meal? I didn't answer, partly because I couldn't remember, and partly because the concern in his voice made something in my chest ache. Days? He pressed. A week? I eat, I said defensively. Food is expensive, and the baby needs other things more. The baby needs a healthy mother, Dante said sharply. Then his voice softened. What's your name? Your real name, not what your badge says. I hesitated. Sarah was the name I'd given when I applied for the job. A name picked at random from a baby book I'd found at the library. But looking into Dante Moretti's dark eyes, I found I couldn't lie to him. Mara, I whispered. Mara Chen. Mara, he repeated, as if testing how it sounded. And the father? Gone, I said shortly. Before I knew. Before I could tell him. Dante's expression darkened. His name. I don't know his real name, I admitted, shame burning in my cheeks. I met him at a bar. One night. He was gone by morning. If Dante judged me for that admission, his face didn't show it. Instead, he pulled out his phone and typed rapidly. Dr. Russo will meet us at the house. He's the best obstetrician in Chicago. I can't pay for a doctor, I said, panic rising. The emergency room at County is free. You can stop worrying about money, Dante interrupted. At least for tonight. Tonight you will eat. You will see a doctor. You will rest. Tomorrow we will discuss the rest. The rest of what? His eyes met mine, and in them I saw a determination that was both terrifying and oddly comforting. Everything. The Moretti estate sat in Lincoln Park, one of Chicago's most prestigious neighborhoods. As we passed through the gates, actual iron gates with security guards who nodded respectfully to Angelo, I realized I'd entered a world so far removed from my cramped studio that it might as well have been on another planet. The house itself was a 3-story mansion, all stone and glass and old-world elegance. Lights blazed from windows, warm and welcoming, despite the fortress-like exterior. Angelo pulled up to the main entrance, and Dante was out of the car before it fully stopped, reaching back to help me. But when I moved to stand, my legs wobbled dangerously. Without hesitation, Dante scooped me back into his arms. I can walk, I protested weakly. Clearly not well, he replied, carrying me up the front steps. The doors opened as if by magic, revealing a marble foyer with a chandelier that probably cost more than my mother's house. A woman in her 50s appeared, her gray hair pulled into a neat bun. She wore a simple black dress that spoke of elegance and authority. Her eyes widened when she saw me in Dante's arms. Mr. Moretti, she said, her accent marking her as Italian. Shall I prepare the guest room? The room next to mine? Dante corrected, starting up a sweeping staircase. Have Maria bring up food immediately. Something light but nourishing. Soup, bread, fruit, and call Dr. Russo. He should be here in 20 minutes. Of course, sir. The woman's eyes softened as they settled on me. The poor dear looks exhausted. She is, Dante agreed. And pregnant, 4 months. The woman's hand flew to her chest. Madonna, a bambina. She will want for nothing here." "See that she doesn't, Rosa." He carried me down a hallway lined with artwork that looked like it belonged in museums. Finally, he shouldered open a door, revealing a bedroom that was larger than my entire apartment. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, piled with pillows and covered in what looked like silk sheets. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of gardens lit by soft landscape lighting. Dante set me gently on the bed, then knelt to remove my shoes. The gesture was so unexpected, so intimate, that I froze. I started. "Be quiet," he said, but there was no heat in the words. His fingers worked the buckles of my practical black heels, sliding them off with care. "When did you last see a doctor?" "I can't afford to answer the question, Mara." 2 months ago, I admitted. "At a free clinic. They said everything looked fine." His jaw tightened. 2 months. "And since then?" "I've been careful. Taking prenatal vitamins when I can afford them. Staying hydrated. Getting rest when possible. While working 12-hour shifts on your feet," he said flatly. "Carrying heavy trays. Not eating properly." "I was doing the best I could," I said, defensive anger rising. "Not all of us have mansions and private doctors, Mr. Moretti. Some of us have to work to survive." His eyes snapped to mine, and for a moment I saw genuine anger there, but it wasn't directed at me. "You're right, and I apologize for my tone. But Mara, you collapsed. Do you understand what could have happened? To you, to the baby?" The anger drained from me, replaced by the fear I'd been carrying for weeks. "I know," I whispered. "I know, and I'm terrified. But I didn't know what else to do. I can't go back to Milwaukee. My parents, they wouldn't understand. They'd be so disappointed." "Why would they be disappointed?" I laughed bitterly. "Because their daughter, who they sent to nursing school, who was supposed to become successful and make them proud, instead dropped out, got pregnant by a stranger, and is working as a waitress in a city where she knows no one." Understanding dawned in Dante's eyes. "You were a nursing student." "First year," I confirmed. "I was good at it too. But then I got pregnant, and the morning sickness was so bad I couldn't keep up with classes. I couldn't afford tuition and medical care. So I dropped out, worked for a while in Milwaukee, but then I saw him. Him, the baby's father, at a coffee shop near my apartment. He didn't see me, but I saw the woman with him, the ring on her finger, the way she smiled at him like he was her whole world. I swallowed hard. I realized I'd been someone's mistake, someone's secret, and I couldn't stay in that city anymore. Dante's hand found mine, his fingers curling around my smaller ones. The touch should have felt presumptuous. Instead, it felt like an anchor. "His loss," Dante said quietly, "and Chicago's gain." Before I could respond, Rosa appeared with a tray. The scent of chicken soup hit me, and my stomach growled audibly despite the earlier nausea. Dante smiled slightly. "Eat," he commanded, helping me sit up against the pillows. "Slowly. I don't want you getting sick." I wanted to argue, to maintain some dignity, but hunger won. I accepted the bowl and spoon, taking small bites of the rich broth and tender chicken. It was the best thing I'd tasted in months. Dante watched me eat with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but wasn't. "Where are you living now?" he asked. I hesitated, then decided honesty was easier than evasion. "A studio in Englewood, 6th floor walk-up. The neighborhood's rough, but it's cheap." His expression darkened. "Englewood. Alone. Pregnant. I'm careful. I don't go out after dark." I keep my head down. "That's not acceptable." I set down my spoon, meeting his gaze. "With all due respect, Mr. Moretti, my living situation isn't your concern. It became my concern the moment you collapsed at my feet," he countered. "And it's Dante. No more of this, Mr. Moretti formality. Dante." I tested the name. "Why do you care?" "You don't know me." He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. When he spoke, his voice was softer than I'd yet heard it. "My mother was pregnant with me when my father died. She had no one. No family, no support, no resources. She worked herself nearly to death trying to provide for me. I was born premature because of the stress." He stood, moving to the window, his broad shoulders outlined against the city lights. "She died when I was 7. Complications from untreated health problems that started with my difficult pregnancy. She never got proper care because she couldn't afford it. She never asked for help because she was Too proud. My throat tightened at the pain in his voice. I'm sorry. I swore on her grave that if I ever had the means, I would never let a pregnant woman suffer as she did. He turned back to me, his expression fierce. I have the means now, Mara. More means than I'll ever need. So you will let me help you. I can't accept charity. It's not charity, he interrupted. Consider it employment, I blinked. Employment? You're a trained nurse, are you not? Or nearly so. I completed a year of nursing school. I'm certified as a CNA. My grandmother lives here, Dante said. She's 83 and needs someone to check on her daily. Take her vitals, manage her medications. Keep her company. Rosa does her best, but she has the whole household to run. Hope and suspicion warred in my chest. You're inventing a job for me. My grandmother is real, and she does need help, Dante countered. But yes, I'm offering it to you specifically. The position comes with room and board, here at the estate. You'd have your own suite, your own space, access to my doctor, 3 meals a day, and a salary that will allow you to save for when the baby comes. It was too good to be true, which meant it probably was. What's the catch? No catch. Men like you always have a catch. The words escaped before I could stop them. Dante's lips curved in a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Men like me. What do you think you know about me, Mara? I know that you're someone important, that people are afraid of you, that you do business that requires private meetings after hours in corners of restaurants. I lifted my chin. I'm not stupid, Dante. I know what you are. And what am I? Dangerous. Yes, he agreed simply. I am dangerous. To my enemies. To those who would threaten what I've built, or harm those under my protection. But I have never, and will never, harm a woman or child. That is a line I will not cross. I searched his face for deception and found none. Why? Me? Why does this matter so much to you? Because when I saw you fall, when I realized you were pregnant, and alone, and struggling, he shook his head. I saw my mother, and I can't save her, but I can save you. The raw honesty in his voice shattered my defenses. I don't need saving. Perhaps not, he conceded. But you need help, and I'm offering it with no strings attached. You can leave any time. The job is real. The salary is fair. All I ask is that you give it a try. A knock at the door interrupted us. A man in his 60s entered, carrying a leather medical bag. Dante, he said warmly. Then his eyes found me. Ah, the patient. Dr. Russo, this is Mara Chen. Dante introduced us. 17 weeks pregnant, collapsed from exhaustion and malnutrition at the restaurant tonight. Dr. Russo's expression shifted to professional concern. Let's have a look, shall we? He moved to the bedside, pulling out a stethoscope. I'll need to examine you, dear. Would you prefer Mr. Moretti to leave? I glanced at Dante, who was already moving toward the door. I'll be right outside, he said. Call if you need me. After he left, Dr. Russo conducted a thorough examination. He checked my blood pressure, listened to my heart, pressed gently on my abdomen. When did you last hear the baby's heartbeat? He asked. At the clinic 2 months ago, I admitted. He pulled out a portable fetal Doppler, warming the gel before applying it to my stomach. For a moment, there was only static. Then, a rapid whooshing sound filled the room. My baby's heartbeat. Strong and steady. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. Is that perfectly normal? Dr. Russo assured me, smiling. Strong heartbeat, good rate. You're approximately 17 weeks, you said? Yes. He continued the exam, asking questions about my symptoms, my diet, my stress levels. Finally, he sat back, folding his stethoscope. You're severely anemic, which explains the dizziness and exhaustion. I'm prescribing iron supplements in addition to your prenatal vitamins. You're also underweight for this stage of pregnancy. We need to get at least 15 pounds on you in the next few months. I've been trying to eat better, I said quietly. I know, he said gently, but the baby takes what it needs from you. If you're not getting enough nutrients, you're the one who suffers. Mara, if you'd continued like this for even another few weeks, he shook his head. It's good you're here now. Dante will see that you're properly cared for. You know about his offer? I know, Dante, Dr. Russo replied. He's a complicated man, but when he gives his word, he keeps it. If he's promised you protection, you have it. Completely. After Dr. Russo left, Dante returned with more food, bread, cheese, fruit, and a tall glass of milk. "Doctor's orders," he said, setting it on the nightstand. "Eat until you can't eat anymore." I picked up a strawberry, biting into its sweet flesh. He said the baby's fine. I heard. The relief in Dante's voice was palpable. "And you?" "Anemic. Underweight. Apparently I've been slowly killing myself." "That ends now," Dante said firmly. "You'll stay here. You'll eat. You'll rest. You'll see Dr. Russo weekly. And when you're stronger, if you still want to work with my grandmother, we'll arrange that. And if I want to leave?" His eyes met mine, honest and direct. "Then you leave. I won't stop you. But Mara, at least give me a week. 1 week to show you that accepting help isn't weakness. That you and your baby deserve to be cared for. 1 week. 7 days in a mansion instead of my cold studio. Regular meals instead of rationing crackers. Safety instead of constant vigilance." 1 week, I agreed. "But I'm not your charity case, Dante. I'll earn my keep." "You already have," he said quietly, "by trusting me enough to stay." He left me then, closing the door softly behind him. I finished eating, then slipped under the silk sheets, my hand resting on my barely visible bump. Outside, I heard voices, Dante's deep rumble and Angelo's quieter response. "You're going soft, boss," Angelo said, not unkindly. "Perhaps," Dante replied. "Or perhaps I'm finally doing something right." I fell asleep with those words echoing in my mind, and for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. Morning light filtered through gauzy curtains, warming my face with a gentleness that pulled me from the deepest sleep I'd had in months. For a moment, I forgot where I was. The mattress beneath me was too soft, the sheets too smooth, the air too warm and scented with something floral. Then memory crashed back. The restaurant. The collapse. Dante Moretti carrying me through the dining room like I weighed nothing, his eyes darkening when he realized I was pregnant. I sat up carefully, half expecting the dizziness to return. But my head felt clear for the first time in weeks. My body, while still tired, didn't ache with the bone-deep exhaustion that had become my constant companion. A soft knock at the door made me tense. "Yes?" Rosa entered, carrying a tray that smelled like heaven. "Good morning, Miss Chen. Mr. Moretti asked me to bring you breakfast. He said you're to eat everything, then rest more if you need to." She set the tray on the bed, scrambled eggs, toast with butter and jam, fresh fruit, yogurt and orange juice. More food than I'd normally eat in an entire day. "This is too much," I protested. Rosa's smile was warm but firm. "Dr. Russo's orders. You're eating for 2 now, Bambina. And you need to catch up after months of not eating enough." She moved to the windows, pulling back the curtains fully to reveal a stunning view of the estate's gardens. "Mr. Moretti is in his office handling business. He said to tell you there's no rush, but when you're ready, he'd like to introduce you to his grandmother." "Where are my clothes?" I asked, suddenly aware I was still wearing yesterday's work uniform, now wrinkled and stained. "Being laundered," Rosa replied. "But Mr. Moretti had some things sent over early this morning. The closet should have everything you need for now." After she left, I opened the closet to find it stocked with comfortable clothing, soft pants with elastic waists, loose-fitting shirts, even maternity wear in exactly my size. Everything still had tags attached, and I didn't want to think about how Dante had known my measurements or arranged delivery before dawn. I ate every bite of breakfast, surprised by how hungry I was. Then I showered in the attached bathroom, a marble sanctuary with a rainfall showerhead and toiletries that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I dressed in black leggings and an oversized cream sweater, pulled my dark hair into a ponytail, and ventured out into the hallway. The Moretti mansion was even more impressive in daylight. Hardwood floors gleamed beneath my borrowed slippers. Oil paintings lined the walls, some modern, others clearly antiques. Through open doorways, I glimpsed rooms furnished with obvious wealth but also surprising warmth. This wasn't just a showpiece. People actually lived here. I followed voices to what appeared to be a study. The door stood ajar, and through it I could see Dante seated behind a massive desk, Angelo standing beside him. They were studying documents spread across the polished surface. "The shipment arrives Thursday," Angelo was saying. "Russo wants to move it immediately, but I think we should wait, make sure." He stopped abruptly when he noticed me in the doorway. Dante's head snapped up, and his expression shifted from business to something softer. "Mara," he said, standing. "You're awake. How do you feel?" "Better," I admitted, stepping into the room. "Thank you for breakfast. And the clothes. Though you didn't need to, I did," he interrupted. "You can't wear a waitress uniform for the next week." His eyes traveled over me, assessing. "The color suits you." I felt heat rise in my cheeks at the compliment. "Rosa said you wanted me to meet your grandmother?" "If you're feeling up to it." Dante moved around the desk. Today he wore dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle. Without the formal suit, he looked younger, more approachable, but no less dangerous. "She's been asking about you since I told her at breakfast." "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That a pregnant woman collapsed at my restaurant, that she was alone and struggling, and that I've offered her a position as Nana's companion and caregiver." "And she believed that?" I asked, skeptically. Dante's lips curved in a slight smile. "My grandmother has known me for 34 years. She doesn't believe anything I say at face value. But she's willing to meet you with an open mind." He led me through the mansion, Angelo falling into step behind us with the silent efficiency I was beginning to recognize as his default. We climbed to the 3rd floor, where the hallway was quieter, more private. Dante knocked gently on a door at the end of the hall, then opened it without waiting for a response. "Nana? I've brought our guest." The room beyond was a suite similar to mine, but decorated with obvious personal touches. Photographs covered every surface, black and white images of people in old-fashioned clothing, color photos of what must be family gatherings, and everywhere, images of a younger Dante at various ages. In a chair by the window sat a tiny woman with snow-white hair pulled into a bun. She wore a simple dress and cardigan, reading glasses perched on her nose as she studied what appeared to be a newspaper. When she looked up, her eyes, the same dark shade as Dante's, were sharp with intelligence. "So," she said in heavily accented English, "this is the girl who made my grandson carry her through a restaurant like some knight from the storybooks." I felt my face flame. "I'm sorry about that, Mrs. Moretti. I didn't mean to cause a scene." "Call me Nonna," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "Everyone does, and don't apologize for fainting. Apologize for not taking better care of yourself and that baby." She pointed to a chair near hers. "Sit. Let me look at you properly." I obeyed, acutely aware of her scrutiny as she examined me from head to toe. Finally, she nodded. "Too thin. But we will fix that. Rosa is already planning meals to put meat on your bones." "Nonna," Dante said, a warning in his tone. "What?" she asked innocently. "The girl is pregnant and underweight. This is not opinion, it is fact. Dr. Russo said the same thing, yes?" "He did," I admitted. "Then we agree. You will eat. You will rest. You will let us take care of you." Nonna leaned forward, her expression softening. "How far along?" 17 weeks. 4 months. "And the father?" "Gone," I said simply. "He doesn't know about the baby." Something flickered in Nonna's eyes. Understanding, perhaps. Or memory. "My husband died before Dante was born," she said quietly. "Heart attack at 37 years old. I was alone in a country where I barely spoke the language, with no family and no money." She reached out, taking my hand in her weathered one. "So I understand, Bambina. I understand what it is to be afraid and alone." Tears stung my eyes. "I'm trying so hard to do everything right. I know you are. But sometimes, trying alone is not enough. Sometimes we must accept help." She glanced at Dante, who stood watching us with an unreadable expression. "My grandson, he is many things. Some good, some not so good. But when he gives his word, he keeps it. If he says you are safe here, you are safe. What if I don't deserve his help?" The question escaped before I could stop it. "I made mistakes. Bad choices. I got myself into this situation." "Stop," Nonna commanded, her voice sharp. "You made choices. Yes. Some maybe not wise. But you are here now, trying to survive, trying to protect your child. That is what matters. Not the past, but what you do now." She released my hand and sat back in her chair. "Dante tells me you have nursing training." "A year of nursing school," I confirmed. "I'm certified as a CNA." "Good. Then you can help me with my medications. The doctor gives me so many pills, I can never remember which is which, and my blood pressure needs checking daily." Rosa does it, but she is so busy with the house. I can do that, I said, grateful to have something useful to offer. I'm good with medications and vitals. Then we have an arrangement, Nana declared. You will check on me each morning and evening. Make sure I am taking my medicines correctly. Keep me company when you have time. And in exchange, you will have a room, meals, and safety until your baby comes. It was essentially what Dante had offered, but hearing it from Nonna made it feel more legitimate. Less like charity, more like employment. There's one more thing, Nonna added, her eyes twinkling with something that might have been mischief. You must tell me stories. About your life, your pregnancy, everything. I am old and bored, and Rosa only wants to talk about the household accounts. Despite everything, I found myself smiling. I can do that. Good. Now Dante, leave us. I want to talk to Mara alone, woman to woman. Dante hesitated, clearly reluctant. Nana, go, she ordered, making a shooing motion with her hand. We will be fine. Send Rosa up with tea in 30 minutes. After Dante left, closing the door behind him, Nonna gestured to a small table near the window. Bring that box here. The wooden one. I retrieved the carved wooden box and set it in her lap. She opened it to reveal photographs, letters, and small mementos. Gently, she lifted out a black and white photo of a young woman holding a newborn baby. This is me, she said softly. The day after Dante was born. You see how thin I am? How tired? The woman in the photo did look exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her body gaunt beneath the hospital gown. But she was smiling at the baby in her arms with absolute love. I worked in a factory, Nana continued, until 2 days before he came. 12-hour shifts standing at a machine. The other women told me to rest, but I could not afford to. I needed every dollar for when the baby arrived. She set down the photo and picked up another, this one of a young boy, maybe 5 or 6, with serious dark eyes and a too solemn expression. Dante was always watching, always aware. Even as a child, he noticed when I was in pain, when I skipped meals so he could eat more. He learned very young that the world was not kind to those who had nothing. What happened to his father? I asked gently. Marco? Nana's expression grew distant. He was a good man who made some bad choices, got involved with people who promised easy money but delivered only danger. When he tried to leave them, they killed him, made it look like an accident. But I knew. She met my eyes, and in them, I saw the echo of old pain. I tell you this so you understand. Dante grew up in violence and poverty. He fought his way out of it through means that are not always legal. But he did what he had to do to survive, to protect me. And now, he protects others because he remembers what it was like to need protecting. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you are afraid of him, Nana said simply. I see it in your eyes. You think because he is dangerous to some, he must be dangerous to you. But Bambina, Dante would cut off his own hand before harming a woman or child. This I know with absolute certainty. She reached out, placing her weathered hand over mine. You are safe here, Mara. Truly safe. Not just from the world outside, but from Dante himself. He will never ask anything of you that you do not wish to give. How can you be sure? Because I raised him, Nana said firmly. And despite everything he has become, everything he has had to do to survive in his world, that core of honor his father tried to teach him, it remains. He guards it fiercely. We talked for another hour, Nana sharing stories of Dante's childhood, of her struggles as a single mother, of the choices she'd made to survive. By the time Rosa arrived with tea, I felt I understood both of them better. When I finally left Nana's room, I found Dante waiting in the hallway, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. He straightened when he saw me. Well? He asked. Did Nana interrogate you thoroughly? She told me about your father, I said quietly. About how hard things were when you were young. Something shuddered in Dante's expression. She shouldn't have. I'm glad she did, I interrupted. It helps me understand why you're doing this, why you care. And does understanding make you trust me more or less? I considered the question. More, I admitted. Because now I know this isn't about control or ownership. It's about redemption, Dante suggested, his voice rough. Trying to save someone when I couldn't save my own mother? Maybe, I agreed. But also kindness, which is rarer than you might think. We stood in the hallway, the afternoon sun painting golden rectangles on the hardwood floor between us. Dante looked like he wanted to say something more, but Angelo appeared at the top of the stairs. "Boss," he said. "The meeting you scheduled for this afternoon, they've arrived early." Dante's jaw tightened. "Tell them to wait in the study. I'll be there in 5 minutes." After Angelo left, he turned back to me. "I have business to attend to. Rosa will bring you lunch in your room, or you're welcome to eat in the dining room. This afternoon, there's a delivery coming, some things I thought you might need." "Dante, you can't keep buying me things." "Yes, I can," he said firmly. "And I will. Get used to it, Mara." He started to walk away, then paused and turned back. "One more thing. Starting tomorrow, you'll have security." "Security?" I echoed. "Why would I need interrupted?" "Because you're living in my house now," Dante interrupted. "That makes you part of my household. Anyone looking to get to me might see you as a vulnerability." Fear tightened my chest. "Are you saying I'm in danger because of you?" "I'm saying I take no chances with the people under my protection." His expression softened slightly. "The security will be discreet. You'll barely notice them, but they'll ensure you're safe whenever you leave the estate. And if I want to leave the estate, then you tell me or Angelo, and we arrange it. You're not a prisoner, Mara, but you are pregnant, and you are my responsibility now. I will keep you safe, even if you find it inconvenient." After he left, I returned to my room to find Rosa had indeed left lunch, a bowl of pasta with vegetables, crusty bread, and a salad. I ate mechanically, my mind churning with everything I'd learned. Dante Moretti was a contradiction, dangerous and kind, wealthy and humble, ruthless in business but gentle with his grandmother and apparently determined to protect me and my baby. I should have been terrified. Should have packed my few belongings and run back to my studio apartment where life was hard but predictable. Instead, I found myself wanting to stay. Not just for the food and shelter and medical care, though those were considerable draws, but because for the first time since I'd seen that positive pregnancy test, I didn't feel completely alone. The delivery Dante mentioned arrived late afternoon, boxes and bags carried upstairs by staff members who unpacked everything in my room with quiet efficiency. Maternity clothes in soft fabrics and flattering cuts. Pajamas, slippers, toiletries, books about pregnancy and childcare. Prenatal vitamins and the iron supplements Dr. Russo had prescribed. And in one small box, wrapped in tissue paper, a tiny lamb with impossibly soft fur. I held the lamb, fighting tears. It was the first thing anyone had bought for my baby. The first acknowledgement that this tiny life growing inside me was real, was wanted, was worth celebrating. That evening, Rosa insisted I join Dante and Nonna for dinner in the smaller family dining room. Unlike the formal spaces I'd glimpsed, this room was cozy, with a round table that seated 6 comfortably. Dante was already there when I arrived, changed into fresh clothes but looking tired. Lines of strain bracketed his mouth, and his eyes held a weariness that suggested his afternoon meetings hadn't gone well. "Mara," he said, standing when I entered. "Please, sit." Nonna arrived moments later, moving slowly but refusing the arm Angelo offered. "I am old, not invalid," she declared, settling into her chair with a satisfied huff. Dinner was informal but delicious: chicken piccata, roasted vegetables, and risotto that melted on the tongue. Rosa and another staff. The member served, but the atmosphere was relaxed, almost familial. "So," Nonna said, fixing me with her sharp gaze, "Dante tells me you're from Milwaukee originally. What brought you to Chicago?" I glanced at Dante, who gave a slight nod of encouragement. "I needed a fresh start," I said carefully. "After I found out I was pregnant, I realized I couldn't stay there anymore." "Because of the father?" Nonna pressed. "Because of everything," I admitted. My parents' disappointment, the shame I felt, the way people looked at me when they realized I was pregnant and alone. I needed to be somewhere no one knew me, somewhere I could figure out who I was going to be now that my life had changed completely. Nonna nodded slowly. "This I understand. Sometimes we must leave behind what we know to become who we need to be. What about you?" I asked, eager to shift the focus. "How did you end up in America?" "Love," Nonna said simply. "I fell in love with a man who dreamed of America, of opportunity and freedom. So we came together, young and foolish, and convinced love was enough." Her smile turned sad. "Sometimes love is not enough, but we made a life here, had a son, and even though Marco died too young, I do not regret the choice." After dinner, Dante walked me back to my room. The hallway was quiet, the house settling into evening calm. "Your grandmother is remarkable," I said as we reached my door. "She is," Dante agreed. "And stubborn. And too smart for her own good sometimes. She loves you very much. The feeling is mutual." He paused, his hand resting on the doorframe above my head. The position brought him close, and I caught the scent of his cologne mixed with something uniquely him. "How are you feeling?" "Truthfully, tired," I admitted, "but good tired. Like my body is finally allowed to rest instead of constantly being in survival mode." "Good." His eyes searched my face. "And the baby?" "I felt movement earlier," I said, unable to keep the wonder from my voice. "Just little flutters, but definitely there." Something soft crossed Dante's expression. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward my stomach. I hesitated only a moment before nodding. Dante's hand settled gently over my small bump, his palm warm through the thin fabric of my sweater. We stood like that for a long moment, his dark eyes focused on where his hand rested, as if he could feel what I felt. "There," I whispered, as another flutter rippled beneath his palm. "Did you—" "Yes," he said, his voice rough. I felt it. When he withdrew his hand, I immediately missed the warmth of his touch. "Thank you," I said softly. "For everything. The clothes, the doctor, letting me stay here. I know I keep saying I don't need saving, but—" "You don't need saving," Dante interrupted gently. "But you needed help. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes. Saving implies you're helpless, broken, unable to help yourself. Help means you're strong enough to know when you need support and brave, enough to accept it." His fingers brushed my cheek, the touch feather-light. "You're one of the strongest people I've met, Mara. Don't ever doubt that." He left me then, walking down the hallway with his characteristic controlled grace. I went inside my room and closed the door, leaning against it as I tried to process the day. One day. I'd been here for barely 24 hours, and already my world had shifted on its axis. I had shelter, food, medical care, safety. And I had Dante Moretti, a man who terrified and intrigued me in equal measure, who touched me with a gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about who he was. I changed into the soft pajamas from the delivery, climbed into the impossibly comfortable bed, and reached for one of the pregnancy books. But I couldn't focus on the words. My mind kept returning to the feeling of Dante's hand on my stomach, the wonder in his eyes when he felt my baby move. Sleep came slowly, and when it did, I dreamed of strong arms, carrying me through darkness into light. The next 3 days established a routine. Mornings, I'd visit Nana, checking her blood pressure and medications, then staying to chat over tea. She taught me Italian phrases and shared stories about Dante's childhood, how he'd won every school fight but never started them, how he'd worked 3 jobs as a teenager to help pay the bills, how he'd cried at his first communion because his father wasn't there to see it. Afternoons were mine to rest, read, or explore the estate. The gardens were beautiful, full of late-season flowers and stone pathways that wound between perfectly manicured hedges. I found a bench beneath a willow tree where I could sit and watch birds flit between branches. Evenings meant dinner with Dante and Nana, conversations that ranged from current events to family history to Nana's opinions on everything from politics to the proper way to make marinara sauce. And always, there was Dante, attentive but not hovering, present but respectful of my space. He asked about my day, my health, my comfort, but he never pushed for more information than I offered, never crossed the invisible boundaries I'd established. On the 4th morning, I woke to find a gift on my nightstand, a leather journal with my name embossed on the cover and a note in strong, angular handwriting. "For recording your thoughts, your journey, or your baby's story. Every child deserves to know how much they were wanted. D." I traced the embossed letters of my name, emotion tightening my throat. Dante was right. My baby did deserve to know their story. Not the shameful secret I'd carried for months, but the truth that they were conceived in loneliness but born into something better. That their mother had fought for them, had made hard choices, had found help when she needed it most. I was writing my first entry when Rosa knocked to tell me I had a visitor. "A visitor?" I echoed, confused. "Who? Would?" "She says she's your friend from Milwaukee," Rosa said, her expression uncertain. "A Miss Taylor? She's quite insistent." Ice flooded my veins. Taylor. My former roommate from nursing school. But how had she found me? I'd been so careful, using cash for rent, avoiding social media, telling no one where I'd gone. I started, but Rosa was already ushering in a petite blonde woman I'd once considered my closest friend. Mara. Taylor rushed forward, arms outstretched. "Oh my God, I've been so worried. You just disappeared, and I thought..." She stopped abruptly, her eyes dropping to my stomach. "You're pregnant. What are you doing here, Taylor?" I asked, remaining seated on the bed. Something felt wrong about this. "How did you find me?" "I've been looking everywhere," she said, her voice full of concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Your parents were worried sick. They hired a private investigator. My parents, who hadn't answered my calls in 3 months, who'd made it clear I was a disappointment to them." "That's interesting," I said carefully, considering they told me not to contact them again until I'd fixed my situation. Taylor had the grace to look uncomfortable. "People say things when they're upset. Your mom wants to talk to you. She wants to help." "Help?" I repeated. "Or convince me to give up the baby?" Taylor's expression flickered. "She just wants what's best for you, for your future. You can still finish nursing school if I give up my child." I finished flatly. "That's what you mean, isn't it?" "Mara, be reasonable. You're not ready to be a mother. You have no money, no job, no support system. She has all of those things." A cold voice interrupted from the doorway. Dante stood there, Angelo behind him, both men radiating danger. "In my house." Taylor's eyes widened as she took in Dante, his expensive suit, his commanding presence, the barely leashed violence in his stance. "Who are you?" "I'm the man who ensures Mara and her baby want for nothing," Dante replied, moving into the room. "And you are the person who will be leaving. Now. You can't just..." Taylor started. "Actually, I can," Dante interrupted. "This is my home. Mara is my guest, and you were not invited." He turned to Angelo. "Escort Miss Taylor to her car. Ensure she understands she is not to return." As Angelo moved toward Taylor, she looked at me desperately. "Mara, please. Your parents just want to talk to you. They sent me to bring you home." "This is home," I said quietly. "At least for now. Tell my parents I'm safe. I'm healthy, and I'm making my own choices. If they truly want to talk, they can call me themselves." After Taylor was gone, Dante turned to me. "Are you all right? How did she find me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I was so careful. Private investigators are persistent," Dante said grimly. "Especially when well paid. But we'll handle it. I'm increasing your security detail, and I'm having my lawyer contact your parents." "Your lawyer?" I echoed. "Why?" "To make it clear that any further attempts to harass, manipulate, or coerce you will result in legal action." His expression softened slightly. "You're under my protection now, Mara. That extends to all threats, including familial ones." I should have protested. Should have insisted I could handle my parents myself. But the truth was, I couldn't. They'd always been able to manipulate me with guilt and shame. Having Dante stand between us felt like relief. "Thank you," I whispered. Dante crossed to where I sat, kneeling so we were eye level. "You never have to thank me for protecting you. It's what I do. Who I am." His hand found mine. "But I need you to understand something. The more visible you become in my life, the more people will try to use you to get to me. Your parents, old friends, anyone who thinks they can manipulate you for their own gain. It will get worse before it gets better." "Maybe I should leave," I said, fear clawing at my throat. "If being here puts me in danger, being here keeps you safe," Dante corrected firmly. "Out there, alone, you're vulnerable to anyone who wants to take advantage. Here, with me, you're untouchable." His eyes held mine, intense and unwavering. "I won't let anyone hurt you, Mara. Not your parents, not the baby's father if he ever surfaces. Not anyone. Do you believe me? Did I?" I searched his face, looking for deception or hidden motives. But all I saw was fierce determination and something else. Something that looked almost like caring. "Yes," I said finally. "I believe you." Relief flickered across his features. "Good. Now Dr. Russo is coming this afternoon for your weekly checkup. After that, if you're feeling up to it, I thought we might take a drive. Get you out of the house for a while." "A drive where?" "Anywhere you want," Dante said simply. "Within reason. Maybe Michigan Avenue? You could pick out some things for the baby. Furniture, clothes, whatever you need." I can't afford. I can, he interrupted. And before you argue, consider this. You're working for me now. Taking care of Nona is actual employment. That means you earn a salary, and part of that salary includes benefits, like baby supplies. I couldn't help but smile at his logic. You're very good at getting your way. I've had a lot of practice, Dante admitted, returning my smile. He stood, pulling me gently to my feet. Come on. Nana's been asking for you. Something about teaching you to make her famous tiramisu. As we left my room, his hand settled naturally at the small of my back, a touch that was becoming familiar, comforting even. And as we walked through the halls of his mansion toward his grandmother's suite, I realized something that both thrilled and terrified me. I was beginning to feel at home here, in Dante's world, under his protection, surrounded by his family. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. 3 weeks had passed since Taylor's visit, and life had settled into something almost normal. Almost. Because nothing about living in a mafia boss's mansion while pregnant with another man's baby could truly be called normal. But it was safe. And for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. Dr. Russo's weekly visits confirmed what I could feel: the baby was thriving. I'd gained 12 pounds, my anemia was improving, and the constant exhaustion had faded. At 20 weeks, my bump was undeniable now, a round swell that I'd stopped trying to hide beneath baggy clothes. Nana had become my closest confidant. Every morning, I'd check her vitals, manage her medications, then stay for tea and conversation. She taught me to cook traditional Italian dishes, correcting my technique with the sharp eye of someone who'd been perfecting recipes for 60 years. And she told me stories about Dante, about her late husband, about surviving in a world that often felt designed to crush people like us. You're good for him, she said one morning as we rolled out pasta dough in the mansion's kitchen. Rosa had given up the space to us, retreating with an indulgent smile. I'm his employee, I corrected, pressing the dough flat with the heel of my hand. I take care of you. That's the arrangement. Nonna made a dismissive sound. Arrangement. As if you could fool these old eyes. I see how he looks at you, Bambina. How he touches you when he thinks no one notices. The way his whole body relaxes when you walk into a room. You're imagining things, I said, but my face heated. Am I? Nana's eyes twinkled with knowing amusement. Then explain why he comes home for lunch now when he never used to. Why he schedules his meetings around dinner time so he can eat with us. Why he asks Rosa about you a dozen times a day, what you ate, if you rested, if you seemed happy. I hadn't known that last part. The thought of Dante checking on me, caring about my happiness, made something warm unfurl in my chest. He's just being kind, I said weakly. Dante is many things. Kind is not a word most people would use. Nonna covered my flour-dusted hands with her own. But with you, with that baby, he is gentle, protective. Dare I say, happy? I have not seen him truly happy in years. Before I could respond, Angelo appeared in the kitchen doorway. His expression was carefully neutral, but I'd learned to read the subtle tension in his shoulders that meant something was wrong. Miss Chen, he said formally. Mr. Moretti would like to see you in his office. My stomach dropped. In 3 weeks, Dante had never summoned me to his office. We saw each other at meals, sometimes in the evenings when he'd find me in the library or gardens. But his office was where he conducted business, the dangerous kind I didn't ask about. Is something wrong? I asked, wiping flour from my hands. He'll explain, Angelo replied, which wasn't an answer at all. I followed him through the mansion, my heart rate climbing with each step. When we reached the office, Angelo knocked once before opening the door. Dante stood behind his desk, his phone pressed to his ear. He looked furious. Not the cold, controlled anger I'd seen directed at others, but something hotter, more personal. When he saw me, he abruptly ended his call. Sit down, Mara, he said, his voice tight. I obeyed, sinking into one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Angelo remained by the door, silent and watchful. What's wrong? I asked, fear making my voice small. Dante's jaw worked for a moment before he spoke. The father of your baby. You said you didn't know his real name. Ice flooded my veins. That's right. Why? Describe him to me. Everything you remember. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to think back to that night 5 months ago. Tall, maybe 6'2", dark hair, dark eyes. He said his name was James. He had a tattoo on his left forearm, some kind of symbol I didn't recognize. He spoke with an accent, Italian, I think, but he said he grew up in Boston. Dante's expression grew darker with each detail. He turned his laptop toward me, displaying a photograph. Is this him? The face on the screen was both familiar and strange. Older in the photo than I remembered, more serious. But those eyes, that sharp jawline, yes, that was him. Yes, I whispered. Who is he? Dante's next words felt like a physical blow. Marco Berlucchi, son of Vincent Berlucchi, head of the Berlucchi family. The names meant nothing to me, but Angelo's sharp intake of breath suggested they should. I don't understand, I said, looking between them. Who are the Berlucchis? My enemies, Dante said flatly. The family that's been trying to undermine my operations for the past 3 years. Vincent's son, Marco, has been particularly persistent. And apparently, he's also the father of your child. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of the chair, fighting waves of nausea that had nothing to do with pregnancy. No, that can't be right. It was one night, a random encounter at a bar. He didn't even give me his real name, because he couldn't risk you knowing who he was, Dante said, moving around the desk to kneel before me. His hands covered mine where they clutched the chair. Mara, look at me. This is important. Think carefully. Did he ask you any questions about yourself? Your work? Where you lived? Anything specific? I forced myself to focus, to remember. The bar had been dimly lit, crowded with Friday night revelers. James Marco had approached me with easy charm and a smile that made me forget I was exhausted from a double shift. We'd talked for hours about nothing important, or so I'd thought. He asked where I worked, I said slowly. I told him I was a nursing student. He seemed interested, asked what hospital I was training at, what departments I'd rotated through. My stomach churned as understanding dawned. He was gathering information. Street. Mary's hospital, Dante said grimly. Where I was. Recovering from surgery at the time. Surgery few people knew about because I kept it quiet to avoid looking vulnerable. What kind of surgery? I asked, dreading the answer. Gunshot wound, Dante replied simply, courtesy of the Berlucchis. The bullet lodged near my spine. It required a complicated procedure by a specialist who only operated at Street. Mary's. Horror washed over me. He used me. He slept with me to get information about you? Probably, Dante said, his voice gentle despite the brutal truth. The Berlucchis have tried everything to find weaknesses in my organization. Medical records are valuable intelligence. But I didn't know anything, I protested. I was a first-year student. I never even saw you at the hospital. They couldn't have known that. And Marco likely considered it worth the effort. Dante's thumb stroked the back of my hand. I'm sorry, Mara. I know this isn't easy to hear. I pulled my hands away, standing on shaky legs. So the baby, my baby, I couldn't finish the sentence. A Berlucchi by blood, Dante confirmed. But that changes nothing about my protection of you or the child. How can you say that? My voice rose with panic. This baby is your enemy's grandchild. You can't possibly want us here now. Sit down, Dante commanded, his voice hard. When I didn't immediately obey, he stood and guided me back to the chair with firm but gentle hands. Listen to me carefully. The circumstances of your baby's conception don't matter. What matters is that you are under my protection. That baby is innocent of their father's sins. But the Berlucchis, if they find out Marco has a child, they already know, Angelo said quietly from the doorway. Marco just found out himself. Apparently, someone from Milwaukee contacted him, my parents, or Taylor, someone who thought they were helping by tracking down the baby's father, not realizing they were lighting a fuse. What will they do? I asked, my hand moving, protectively to my stomach. Dante's expression was grim. Vincent Berlucchi is traditional. Family means everything to him. A grandchild, even one born out of wedlock, would be considered valuable. An heir. They'll want to take the baby, I whispered, the horror of it settling like lead in my gut. They'll try, Dante corrected. They won't succeed. How can you be sure? If they're as powerful as you, because I'm more powerful, Dante interrupted, his voice carrying absolute certainty. And because I will die before I let anyone take your child from you. The fierce protectiveness in his tone should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel safer than I had since this nightmare began. "Why?" I asked, the question escaping before I could stop it. "Why do you care so much? This baby isn't yours." "I'm not yours. You owe us nothing." Dante was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes searching my face. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "You're right. That baby isn't mine by blood. But these past 3 weeks, watching you settle into my home, watching you laugh with Nonna, watching that child grow inside you," he stopped, seeming to struggle for words. "I've felt more purpose, more meaning in protecting you and that baby than I have in years of empire building." He moved closer, his hand coming up to cup my face. The touch was achingly gentle. "And Mara, you may not be mine in any official sense, but you are mine to protect, mine to care for, mine to ensure no harm ever touches. If you'll let me." Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. "I'm so scared, Dante. What if they take my baby? What if—" "They won't," he said firmly, his thumb brushing away my tears. "I'm going to explain exactly what we're going to do to ensure that never happens. But first, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" I looked into his eyes, seeing the determination there, the fierce protectiveness that had been growing since the moment he caught me when I fell. "Yes," I whispered. "I trust you." Relief flickered across his features. "Good. Then here's what happens next." Over the next hour, Dante laid out his plan with military precision. My security detail would triple. I wouldn't leave the estate without at least 4 guards. Every person who entered the property would be screened. And most importantly, Dante's lawyers would immediately begin proceedings to establish legal protections for the baby. "Adoption," Dante said, watching for my reaction. "After the baby is born, if Marco doesn't voluntarily terminate his parental rights, I want to adopt the child myself." I stared at him, unable to process what he was suggesting. "You want to adopt my baby? I want to ensure no court can ever give custody to the Berlucas," Dante corrected. "The strongest legal protection is having another parent with unquestionable rights and resources. That would be me. But you barely know me. Why would you tie yourself to my child for 18 years? Something softened in Dante's expression. "Because in the time I've known you, Mara, you've become important to me. More important than I expected. And that baby you're carrying, I may not have contributed DNA, but I've felt every flutter kick. I've watched you blossom as you've finally been properly nourished and cared for. I've imagined holding that child, protecting them, watching them grow." His voice grew rough. "So no, the baby isn't mine by blood, but they're mine by choice, if you'll let me make that choice." I couldn't speak past the emotion clogging my throat. Here was a man, a dangerous man who dealt in violence and power, offering to become a father to a child conceived by his enemy, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care. "I don't know what to say," I managed finally. "Say you'll think about it," Dante replied. "You don't have to decide now. But know that the offer stands, regardless of what happens with the Berlucas." A knock at the door interrupted us. Angelo stepped inside, his expression grave. "Boss, we have a situation. Marco Berlucchi is at the gate requesting an audience." Every muscle in Dante's body tensed. Requesting or demanding? Requesting. "He's alone, unarmed according to the scanners. Says he just wants to talk to Miss Chen." "Absolutely not," Dante said immediately. "Wait," I heard myself say. Both men turned to look at me. "Maybe I should see him." "No," Dante said flatly. "Dante, he's the baby's father. At some point, we have to deal with that reality." I stood, steadying myself against the desk. "Maybe if he sees that I'm okay, that the baby is okay, he'll back off." "Leave us alone. Or he'll try to manipulate you," Dante countered. "Convince you that he cares, that he wants to be involved. And then he'll use that connection to destroy you and take the baby. Then you'll be there," I said simply. "You and Angelo. And however many guards you think necessary. He won't be able to hurt me with you there." Dante looked like he wanted to argue further, but something in my expression must have convinced him. "Fine," he said after a long moment. "But it happens in the formal living room, with guards at every exit. And the moment I think he's crossing a line, the meeting ends." 20 minutes later, I sat in an elegantly appointed living room, Dante beside me on a velvet sofa, Angelo stationed by the door. and 3 more guards positioned strategically around the space. My heart hammered against my ribs as I waited to face the man who'd fathered my child, then disappeared like smoke. When Marco Berlucci entered, I barely recognized him. He wore an expensive suit, his dark hair perfectly styled. But it was his eyes that caught me. They were harder than I remembered, calculating in a way that sent chills down my spine. Those eyes swept the room, cataloging the guards, before landing on me. Specifically, on my rounded stomach. "Mara," he said, his voice exactly as I remembered. "You're really pregnant. You say that like you doubted it." I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I doubted it was mine," Marco admitted, moving further into the room. Angelo shifted position, a subtle reminder that he was there, watching. "When your friend contacted me, claimed I'd fathered a child during a one-night stand, I assumed it was a scam. But then I saw your photo, and I remembered." "How flattering," I said dryly. Marco's lips quirked in what might have been amusement. "You look different than you did that night. Healthier, well cared for." His gaze shifted to Dante, and all humor vanished. "Moretti, should have known you'd find a way to turn this to your advantage." "I had nothing to do with your father's conception," Dante said coldly. "Mara is under my protection because she needed help. The fact that you're the father is an unfortunate complication, nothing more." "An unfortunate complication," Marco repeated. "Is that how you see my child?" "It's how I see you," Dante countered. "The child is innocent." Tension crackled between them like electricity. I placed a hand on Dante's arm, feeling the coiled violence in his muscles. "Marco," I said, drawing his attention back to me. "Why are you here? What do you want?" "To see you. To confirm you're carrying my child. To understand what happens next." "What happens next is that you leave," Dante said. "And you make no attempt to contact Mara or claim any rights to the baby." "That's not your decision to make," Marco replied, his voice hardening. "Actually, it is," I interrupted. Both men looked at me in surprise. "This is my baby, Marco. Mine. You may have contributed DNA, but you were gone before I could even tell you I was pregnant. You used me to gather information about Dante, treated me like a tool, then discarded me. So no, you don't get to walk in here and make demands about this child." Something flickered in Marco's expression. Regret? Shame? It was gone too quickly to identify. "You're right," he said quietly. "I used you. I'm not proud of it, but I won't lie about it. That night at the bar, I was looking for any connection to Moretti's organization. Finding you, a nursing student at Street, Mary's, seemed like providence. But you slept with me," I said, anger rising. "Was that necessary for your intelligence gathering?" "No," Marco admitted. You were different than I expected. Sweet, genuine, so obviously exhausted but trying so hard to be happy. I told myself it was part of the job, but truthfully, I wanted to, and I regret that I hurt you by disappearing." "You regret getting caught, more like," Dante interjected. Marco's gaze shifted to him. "Believe what you want, Moretti. But the fact remains that's my child Mara is carrying. My blood, my family's heir. You think my father will just let you keep them? I think Vincent Berlucci values his life and his organization too much to start a war over a baby," Dante replied smoothly. "Especially when that baby's mother wants nothing to do with your family." "You can't speak for Mara," Marco said. "Actually, he can," I said firmly, "because he's right. I want nothing to do with the Berluccis. I don't want my child growing up in your world of violence and crime and manipulation. And Moretti's world is so much better?" Marco challenged. "He's exactly what you claim to want to protect your child from." "Dante has shown me nothing but kindness and protection," I countered. "You showed me lies and abandonment. I know which man I'd rather have in my child's life." The words seemed to strike Marco physically. His shoulders slumped slightly, the arrogant confidence draining away. "I see. So that's how it is." "That's how it is," Dante confirmed. "Mara has made her choice. The baby will be raised here, under my protection. You and your family have no claim. My father won't accept that. Then your father will find himself at war with me," Dante said, his voice deadly quiet. "And unlike the small skirmishes we've engaged in previously, this will be total. I will dismantle the Berlucci organization piece by piece until nothing remains." Is one baby worth that? Marco was silent for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he looked at me. Is this what you really want? To raise my child in Moretti's house? Yes, I said without hesitation. And if I want to be involved? Not as leverage in this war between our families, but as a father? The question surprised me. I glanced at Dante, who looked ready to explode, then back at Marco. I don't know, I admitted. That would depend on a lot of things. Whether you truly want to be a father, or whether you just want to avoid disappointing your family. Whether you can put your vendetta with Dante aside. Whether I can ever trust you after everything. Marco nodded slowly. That's fair. More than fair, actually. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. I won't push this now. But, Mara, I want you to know that night, what happened between us. Maybe it started as a job. But somewhere in those hours we spent talking, I saw something in you that made me wish I was different. Better. The kind of man who could deserve someone like you. But you're not that man, I said quietly. No, Marco agreed. Not yet, anyway. But maybe fatherhood will change that. He looked at Dante. I'll talk to my father. Try to make him understand that pursuing this will cost us everything. But I can't guarantee he'll listen. Then I'll be ready, Dante replied. After Marco left, escorted out by Angelo and the security team, the living room felt almost oppressively silent. I sat on the sofa, processing everything that had just happened. You handled that well, Dante said finally, settling beside me. Better than I expected. I meant what I said, I told him, turning to meet his eyes. About wanting you in the baby's life instead of him. I hope that's okay. Okay? Dante's laugh was rough. Mara, that's the greatest gift you could give me. The honor of being there for your child, our child. If you'll let me call them that, it means everything. Our child. The words should have felt presumptuous. Instead, they felt right. I'm scared, I admitted. What if the Berlucchis don't back down? What if they try to take the baby? Then I'll stop them, Dante said simply. His arm came around my shoulders, pulling me against his side. I've built an empire from nothing, Mara. I've survived attempts on my life, betrayals, wars with families more powerful than the Berlucchis. I'm not going to lose to them now. Not when the stakes are this high. I let myself lean into his strength, breathing in his scent, feeling the solid warmth of him. When did this happen? I asked softly. When did what happen? When did I stop being your responsibility and start being? I trailed off, unsure how to finish. More? Dante suggested, his voice low. That happened the moment I felt your baby kick and realized I wanted to feel every kick from then on. When I found myself rearranging my schedule just to have dinner with you. When I started imagining a future that included you and a child I didn't help create. I pulled back slightly to see his face. Dante, I'm not sure I'm ready for— I know, he interrupted gently, and I'm not asking you to be ready. I'm just being honest about what I feel, about what I want. You can take all the time you need to figure out what you feel, what you want. I'm not going anywhere. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out to find a text from an unknown number. Tell Moretti he can't keep what's mine. The baby is Berlucchi blood. We'll do whatever necessary to reclaim what belongs to our family. Vincent. My hands shook as I showed Dante the message. His expression went from concern to furious in seconds. Angelo, he called. Angelo appeared immediately. Yes, boss? Lockdown. Full security. Protocol. No one enters or leaves without my explicit approval. Dante stood, pulling me up with him. And get our lawyers on the phone. We're filing for a restraining order against the Berlucchis immediately. Dante, I said, fear making my voice shake. What if a restraining order isn't enough? What if— He cupped my face in his hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. Listen to me, Mara. Nothing and no one will take your baby from you. I promise you that. Do you believe me? I searched his face, seeing the fierce determination there, the protective fury that made him so dangerous to his enemies. Yes, I whispered. I believe you. Good. Now, you're going to go upstairs with Rosa. You're going to rest. And I'm going to make some calls that will ensure Vincent Berlucchi regrets the day he decided to threaten what's mine. What's mine. He kept saying that. And each time, it felt less like possession and more like devotion. As Rosa escorted me upstairs, I heard Dante's voice from his office, cold and commanding as he issued orders to people I'd never met. He was going to war for me, for my baby, and somehow, that realization didn't frighten me. It made me feel safer than I'd ever felt in my life. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of heightened tension. Guards patrolled the grounds in shifts. Cameras were installed in areas that had previously been considered low risk, and Dante barely slept, constantly on his phone coordinating responses to threats I wasn't privy to. I tried to maintain normalcy for Nana's sake, still visiting her each morning and evening, but she saw through my forced smiles. "He will protect you," she said on the second evening, taking my hand as I checked her blood pressure. "I have never seen my grandson fight for anything the way he fights for you and that baby. That's what scares me," I admitted. "What if someone gets hurt because of me? What if Dante—" I couldn't finish the thought. What if he gets hurt protecting you? Nana's grip tightened. "Bambina, Dante has been in danger his entire adult life, but never has he had something worth fighting for beyond power and money. You've given him purpose. Don't take that away by feeling guilty for needing protection." That night, I couldn't sleep. At midnight, I gave up trying and wandered down to the library, hoping a book would settle my racing mind. I was curled in a leather chair, one hand absently rubbing my belly, when Dante found me. "Can't sleep?" he asked from the doorway. "Too much going on in my head," I admitted. "You?" "Same." He moved into the room, settling in the chair across from mine. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, tension in every line of his body. "I'm sorry, Mara. This is my fault. If I hadn't brought you here, kept you close, I'd be alone in a dangerous neighborhood, working myself to death," I interrupted. "Probably already in a hospital somewhere with complications from malnutrition and stress." "Don't apologize for saving me, Dante. Even if being saved means being threatened by my enemies, especially then," I said firmly. "Because at least here, I'm not facing those threats alone." Something shifted in Dante's expression. He stood, crossing to my chair and kneeling beside it. "Mara, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said before, but I was afraid of how you'd react." My heart rate kicked up. "What is it?" "I'm in love with you," he said simply. "I know it's fast. I know the circumstances are complicated. I know you're vulnerable and pregnant and dealing with more than anyone should have to handle. But I can't keep pretending what I feel is just protective obligation or attraction or friendship." He took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "I love you. I love your strength, your kindness, the way you laugh at Nana's terrible jokes. I love watching your hand rest on your stomach, knowing there's a life growing there that I want to help, raise. I love that you challenge me, that you're not afraid to call me out when I'm being too controlling. I love everything about you." Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. "Dante, You don't have to say it back," he interrupted gently. "I'm not telling you to pressure you or expect reciprocation. I'm telling you because you deserve honesty. Because if something happens in this war with the Berlukis, I need you to know that protecting you isn't duty. It's love. You're not going to die," I said fiercely, gripping his hand. "Don't talk like that." "I don't plan to," Dante assured me. "But in my world, plans don't always matter, so I'm telling you now, while I can." His free hand came up to cup my face. "I love you, Mara Chen, and I will love that baby as if they were my own blood. That's my truth. And it doesn't change whether you love me back or not." I stared into his dark eyes, seeing the vulnerability there, the raw honesty. This dangerous man, this crime boss who ruled Chicago's underworld with an iron fist, was kneeling before me, offering his heart with no guarantee of anything in return. "I do," I whispered. "Love you back, I mean. I think I have for weeks now, but I was too scared to admit it. Too scared that it was just gratitude or dependency or Dante's lips found mine, cutting off my rambling explanation with a kiss that was both tender and desperate. His hand cradled the back of my head, the other settling on my stomach, over where our baby because that's what they were now. Ours grew stronger each day. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, Dante rested his forehead against mine. "Say it again," he murmured. "Please. I love you," I said, the words feeling like freedom. "I love you, Dante Moretti, and it terrifies me, but it's true." "Why terrified?" "Because I have so much to lose now," I admitted. "Before, when I was alone, I only had to worry about the baby and myself. But now I have you, and Nonna, and this whole life I'm building here. And the thought of the Berlucas taking it all away. They won't, Dante said with absolute certainty. I promise you, Mara. They won't. The confrontation came 3 days later. I was in the garden with Nonna, reading to her in the warm afternoon sun, when Angelo appeared with 3 other guards. His expression was grim. Miss Chen, you need to come inside. Now. What's wrong? I asked, already standing and helping Nonna to her feet. Vincent Berlucchi is at the gate with Marco and a dozen men, Angelo said. They're demanding to speak with you. Fear and anger warred in my chest. Where's Dante? On his way back from a meeting downtown. He'll be here in 10 minutes. Angelo guided us quickly toward the house. In the meantime, you're going to the safe room. Safe room, I echoed. Reinforced room in the basement, Nonna explained, her voice steady despite the situation. Dante built it after the last attempt on his life. We'll be perfectly safe there. The safe room turned out to be more like a luxury bunker. Comfortable furniture, a kitchenette, bathroom, even a bed. Rosa was already there, wringing her hands with worry. How long do we wait here? I asked Angelo before he could leave. Until Dante gives the all clear, he replied. The room is soundproof and the door is reinforced steel. No one's getting through it. After he left, I paced the small space, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if Vincent had brought those men to storm the mansion? What if Dante was outnumbered? What if— Sit down, Bambina, Nonna commanded. You're going to wear a path in the floor. And stress is not good for the baby. I forced myself to sit beside her on the sofa. She took my hand, her weathered fingers surprisingly strong. Tell me about the baby, she said. Have you thought about names? I don't even know if it's a boy or girl yet, I said. Dr. Russo offered to tell me at the last appointment, but I wanted to wait. Though I'm starting to think I should know, to help prepare. Names are important, Nonna interrupted, clearly trying to distract me. In my family, we always honored our ancestors. Dante was named for his great-grandfather, a man who survived 2 wars and built a farm from nothing. What about Marco? I asked. Dante's father? A good man who made some bad choices, Nonna said sadly. But he loved us fiercely. That love was his greatest strength, and his fatal weakness he thought he could protect us by dealing with dangerous people. Instead, those people killed him. She squeezed my hand. That's why I know Dante will survive this. He learned from his father's mistakes. He doesn't act rashly, doesn't underestimate his enemies. And most importantly, he has something Marco never had: real power. Not borrowed, not through dangerous alliances, but his own. Time crawled by with excruciating slowness. 20 minutes, 30, 45. Each passing minute felt like an hour, my imagination conjuring increasingly terrible scenarios. Finally, the heavy door opened. Dante stood there, looking tired but unharmed. Relief hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. It's over, he said simply. I launched myself at him, wrapping my arms around his neck as tears of relief streamed down my face. His arms came around me immediately, one hand cradling my head, the other supporting my back. You're okay, I sobbed against his shoulder. You're okay. I'm okay, he confirmed, pressing kisses to my hair. We're all okay. And the Berlucas are gone. After ensuring Nonna and Rosa were settled, Dante led me to his office. I sat in my usual chair while he poured 2 glasses of water, handing me one before settling behind his desk. Tell me everything, I demanded. Dante leaned back, studying me. Are you sure you want to know the details? I need to know. He nodded slowly. Vincent arrived with Marco and 12 soldiers, their term not mine. They demanded I hand you over so they could protect their family's heir. I explained that wasn't going to happen. The discussion escalated. How escalated? I asked, noting the torn knuckles on his right hand. Marco tried to force his way past my guards, Dante said. I stopped him. Physically. Then I made Vincent an offer he couldn't refuse. What kind of offer? I have extensive documentation of the Berlucchi family's illegal activities. Enough to send Vincent, Marco, and half their organization to federal prison for the rest of their lives. Dante's expression was cold. I told Vincent I would give all that evidence to the FBI unless he signed a legally binding document relinquishing all claims to your child. My breath caught. And he agreed? He didn't want to. Marco certainly didn't want him to. But I made it clear his freedom and his organization, or a baby he'd never met. It wasn't really a choice. So Marco signed away his parental rights? He did. Witnessed by lawyers. Notarized. Completely binding. Dante pulled a document from his desk drawer and slid it across to me. Your baby is legally free from any Berlucchi claim. Forever. I stared at the paper, at Marco's signature stark against the white page. How did he react? Angry. Hurt. But also, I think, a little relieved. Dante's voice softened. He asked me to tell you something. He said you were right. He's not the man who should raise this child. And he hopes someday the baby will understand that walking away was the most fatherly thing he could do. Emotion clogged my throat. Did he mean it? I think so. Marco is many things, but he's not entirely without conscience. Dante came around the desk, pulling me to my feet and into his arms. It's truly over now, Mara. The Berlucchis can't touch you or the baby. You're safe. I buried my face in his chest, breathing in his scent, letting the reality of his words sink in. Safe. Truly. Completely safe. What about the adoption? I asked, pulling back to look at him. You mentioned wanting to adopt the baby. Is that still? Only if you want it. Dante said carefully. I meant what I said. I want to be this child's father in every way that matters. But if you'd prefer to wait, to see how things develop between us first, I understand. I thought about the past month, about Dante's constant care and protection, about the way he'd fought for me and my baby without hesitation, about the love I saw in his eyes every time he looked at me. I want it, I said firmly. I want you to adopt this baby. I want them to have your name, your protection, your love. I want us to be a family. The joy that lit Dante's face was breathtaking. He lifted me off my feet, spinning me in a circle before carefully setting me down. You mean it? Truly. Truly, I confirmed. On one condition. His expression grew wary. What condition? You marry me first, I said, the words tumbling out before I could second-guess them. I want my child born with one last name while their father has another. I want us to be a family in every legal and official sense. So yes, Dante Moretti, I'm proposing to you. Dante stared at me for a long moment, emotions flickering across his face too quickly to identify. Then he dropped to one knee right there in his office, taking my hand in both of his. Mara Chen, he said, his voice rough with emotion, you have given me more than I ever dreamed possible. Purpose, love, a family. I would be honored beyond words to be your husband and our baby's father. Yes. 1,000 times yes. I pulled him to his feet, kissing him with all the love and relief and joy flooding through me. When we finally broke apart, both breathless and grinning, Dante rested his hand on my stomach. Our baby, he said wonderingly. I'm going to be a father. You already are, I corrected. Biology doesn't make a father. Love does. And you've already shown more love for this child than Marco ever could. The next 3 months passed in a blur of wedding planning, legal proceedings, and preparations for the baby's arrival. Dante's lawyers worked with remarkable efficiency. The adoption paperwork was filed, the marriage license obtained, and within 2 weeks, we stood in the mansion's garden surrounded by a small group, including Nonna, Rosa, Angelo, Dr. Russo, and a few of Dante's most trusted associates. I wore a simple cream-colored dress that accommodated my now prominent belly. Dante looked devastating in a dark suit, his eyes never leaving my face as we exchanged vows. I promise to protect you and our child with everything I am, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. To honor you, cherish you, and ensure you never feel alone or afraid again. You are my heart, Mara. You and this baby are everything. I promise to trust you, I said, tears streaming freely down my face. To build a life with you, to raise our child, together, and to love you through whatever challenges come. You saved me, Dante. Now let me save you back by giving you the family you've always deserved. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Dante's kiss was tender and claiming all at once. The small gathering applauded, Nonna crying happy tears as Rosa embraced her. Finally, Nonna declared at the reception dinner, my grandson is a married man with a baby on the way. I can die happy now. You're not dying, Nonna, Dante said, though his voice was warm with affection. You're going to be around to spoil your great-grandchild rotten. This is true, she agreed. Someone must teach the baby proper Italian. and how to make pasta, and which of Dante's stories to believe, and which are exaggerated. The wedding night was tender rather than passionate. My pregnancy had made me too uncomfortable for anything elaborate. But lying in Dante's arms in the master suite that was now officially ours, feeling our baby move between us, was more intimate than anything physical could have been. "I love you," Dante murmured, his hand splayed across my stomach. "Both of you. My wife and my child." "Your daughter," I corrected, smiling at his sharp intake of breath. "Dr. Russo called this afternoon with the results from last week's ultrasound. We're having a girl." "A daughter," Dante repeated, wonder in his voice. He shifted to press a kiss to my belly. "A little girl who will be fierce and strong like her mother, and protected like a princess by her father," I added. "Always," Dante promised. "I will give her everything: love, security, education, opportunity. She will never want for anything." "Just don't spoil her too much," I warned, though I was smiling. "I make no promises," Dante replied, grinning. "Nana's right, I'm going to spoil both of you rotten." 3 weeks later, at 37 weeks pregnant, I went into labor in the middle of the night. Dante, who'd been sleeping lightly ever since we passed the 35-week mark, was instantly awake and moving. "It's time?" he asked, already pulling on clothes. "It's time," I confirmed through a contraction. The next 12 hours were a blur of pain and pressure, and Dante's constant presence. He never left my side, holding my hand through contractions, breathing with me, offering ice chips and encouragement. "You're doing so well," he murmured during a particularly brutal contraction. "So strong, amor mio. Just a little longer." When our daughter finally entered the world at 3:47 p.m., her lusty cry filling the delivery room, I watched Dante's face transform. He stared at the tiny, wrinkled baby the nurse was cleaning, tears streaming openly down his face. "She's perfect," he whispered. "Mara, she's absolutely perfect." When they placed her in my arms, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, I couldn't believe something so beautiful had come from the mess of the past year. She had dark hair, like Marco, but Dante's nose and my eyes. A perfect blend of genetic lottery and the man who would raise her. "Hello, sweet girl," I murmured, tracing her tiny features. "We've been waiting for you." "What should we name her?" Dante asked, his finger stroking her impossibly small hand. She immediately gripped it, making him laugh through his tears. "She's strong already." I'd been thinking about names for weeks, running through options in my mind. But looking at our daughter now, only one felt right. "Elena," I said, "for your grandmother. Elena Marie Moretti." Dante's breath caught. "Are you sure?" "We could—" "I'm sure," I interrupted. "Your grandmother gave me a place in this family before she had any reason to. She welcomed me, taught me, loved me. I want to honor that." "Elena Marie Moretti," Dante repeated, testing how it sounded. He leaned down to press a kiss to his daughter's forehead. "Welcome to the world, Bambina. Your mama and I have been waiting for you." When they finally let us have privacy, Dante climbed carefully onto the hospital bed beside me, his arm around my shoulders, both of us gazing in wonder at the tiny life we'd created, maybe not in the traditional way, but created nonetheless through choice and love and commitment. "I never imagined this," Dante said quietly. 6 months ago, I was alone except for Nana. No family beyond her, no purpose beyond building my empire. And now," he gestured to Elena sleeping peacefully in my arms. "Now I have everything." "So do I agreed, leaning my head on his shoulder. "I was so lost, Dante, so scared and alone, and you caught me when I fell. In every way that matters, you caught me. And I'll never let you fall again," he promised. "Either of you. My girls. My family." 6 months later, I stood in the mansion's garden, watching Dante push Elena in her swing. At 6 months old, she was all chubby cheeks and gurgling laughter, her dark eyes bright with joy every time Dante pushed her higher. "Careful," I called. "Not too high." "I've got her, Mama," Dante replied, his voice full of warmth. "Don't I, Principessa? Papa's got you." Elena squealed with delight, her tiny hands gripping the swing's chains. The sound filled me with such profound happiness that tears pricked my eyes. Nana appeared at my elbow, linking her arm through mine. "You're happy," she observed. "Truly happy." "I am," I confirmed. So happy it sometimes scares me, like it's too good to be true. It's real, Nana assured me. And it's what both of you deserve. Dante most of all. That boy man, now he's spent his whole life fighting to survive, to protect me, to build something from nothing. But with you, with Elena, he doesn't have to fight anymore. He can just be. He's an amazing father, I said, watching Dante lift Elena from the swing and toss her gently in the air, her delighted giggles echoing across the garden. She adores him, and he adores her. And you, Nonna squeezed my arm. You've given my grandson the greatest gift, Bambina. Not just a child, but a reason to be more than what the world tried to make him. Dante approached with Elena, who immediately reached for me. Mama, she babbled, one of her few words. Mama. Hello, sweet girl, I said, taking her into my arms and covering her face with kisses. Did you have fun with Papa? She always has fun with Papa, Dante said, wrapping his arms around both of us. Because Papa is much more fun than Mama with all her rules about too high and too fast. Papa will learn about rules when she's a teenager, I retorted, making him laugh. Don't remind me, he groaned. She's not allowed to date until she's 30. Dante 35? He suggested hopefully. I shook my head, smiling. This man who ruled Chicago's underworld was utterly helpless against one tiny girl with his eyes and my smile. As we headed inside for Elena's dinner, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here, from collapsing in a restaurant to finding my soulmate, from terror and isolation to love and family, from barely surviving to truly living. I'd thought I was alone when I came to Chicago. Thought I'd have to face single motherhood with nothing but determination and fear to sustain me. Instead, I'd found Dante. And he'd given me everything I didn't know I needed: protection, yes, but also love, partnership, and a family that chose each other every single day. The waitress who'd collapsed serving his table had found her home, and the Mafia boss who'd caught her had found his heart. We were an unlikely family, born from circumstances neither of us had planned. But we were real, we were strong, and we were forever. Epilogue. 1 year later. The sound of Elena's laughter filled the mansion as she toddled through the halls, Dante in pursuit. At 18 months, she was fearless and fast, her father wrapped completely around her. Tiny finger. Elena Marie Moretti, Dante called in his most authoritative voice. Come back here right now. More giggles. She had no fear of his commanding tone. She'd never experienced anything from him but love and patience. I stood at the top of the stairs, one hand resting on my belly where baby number 2 was growing. Dante didn't know yet. I'd only confirmed it with Dr. Russo that morning. He caught Elena finally, scooping her up and tossing her in the air. Gotcha, Principessa. You can't outrun Papa. Papa silly, Elena declared, patting his cheeks with her small hands. Yes, Papa is very silly, Dante agreed, kissing her nose. Then his eyes found me at the top of the stairs, and his expression softened. There's Mama. Should we go give her kisses? He climbed the stairs with Elena in his arms, and when he reached me, he pulled me close with his free arm, the three of us creating a small circle of family. You look happy, he murmured, studying my face. I am happy, I confirmed. Then, unable to wait any longer, I have news. His eyes sharpened. What kind of news? I placed his hand on my still flat stomach. The kind that means Elena's going to be a big sister in about 7 months. Dante froze, his eyes going wide. You're pregnant? I'm pregnant, I confirmed, watching emotions play across his face: shock, joy, wonder. Another baby, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Then, louder, we're having another baby. Elena, picking up on her father's excitement, clapped her hands. Baby, baby! That's right, Tesoro, Dante told her, kissing her head before claiming my lips in a kiss that held all his love and joy. You're going to be a big sister. When we finally broke apart, he kept me close, one arm around me, the other holding Elena. I love you, he said simply. Thank you for this life, for these babies, for choosing me. Thank you for catching me when I fell, I replied, the words carrying the weight of everything we'd been through, and for never letting go. Never, Dante promised. Not in this lifetime or any other. You're mine, Mara Moretti. Forever. Forever, I agreed, kissing him again as Elena giggled between us. From her room down the hall, Nonna called out, Are you three going to stand in the hallway all day? Or will someone tell me this news I'm hearing about? We laughed, walking together to share our joy with the woman who'd welcomed me into this family from the beginning. As we entered her room, Elena babbling excitedly about baby, I looked at Dante and saw my future complicated, unconventional, but filled with more love than I'd ever dreamed possible. The poor waitress had collapsed serving his table. The Mafia boss had frozen when he saw she was pregnant, and together, they'd built something beautiful from the broken pieces of their pasts. A family. A home. A love story that began with a fall and ended with forever. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.